o'clock in the morning on websites for our various niches. But by the time I went to sleep and woke up, I was in another world with people I knew and was interested in how much they had and had not there. And Richard, what do we want to, we call that part of the cosmos, and exposing other worlds, other trends in the multi-dimensions, parallel worlds, universes now in the cosmology, and people on TV are doing the same thing as we are now. So what do you want to call that?
Well, I recognize that the source of all is basically unconditional love. In other words, I don't give them a personality, or I don't try to humanize them. And I think this creator source is basically the source of all of creation. So therefore, it covers all the cosmos and all the universes and all the galaxies and everything. So those that are of a higher dimension than ourselves, that have been around for, who knows, billions of years longer than we have, are far more advanced than we are, and more assimilated to that vibration of love, you could say. So therefore, they would tend to be more peaceful towards us and more peaceful towards others than we have learned to be as of yet. And of course, their technology is more advanced than ours, and they know how to utilize energy and frequency a whole lot better than we do. And of course, they're also coming from possibly a state of well-being, and the fact being that there is no lack, there is no want or true desire, simply because they don't have anything that they have everything that they need, and there's very little that they lack. I'll put it that way. Whereas again, this is a sore topic with us because we're programmed from day one. Basically, you got to get up and you got to get out and you got to work and you got to earn money, and the money in there in turn provides you with everything that you need. And the focus has been on money for far too long, because money is nothing but an expression of energy anyway. It takes the place of bartering, as we used to do in the way, say, 200-300 years ago. Now, of course, money takes the place of it, and the focus has been on money. And money can, brings about power, it brings about influence, it brings about the ability to withhold or the ability to add. Money in and of itself is not evil. It's just simply energy, a means to make changes in your reality or the reality of others. So love, of course, is far more important than just money, because you can't buy love, as they say, and that's very true. Love is just given to you freely, and you expand upon it outwardly from there. So I would hope that if, in fact, other than what you would say telepathic communication, and if, in fact, we have physical contact with another race of beings, that in turn they would greet us with love and we would return that love to them. Now, when, in fact, that's going to happen, who can say? That's up to, timelines and all that kind of thing. Is that what you were referring to? Or?
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, I'd love to hear you talk. Not just your accent, but that's a big part of it, but the words you put together. And you always seem to have I really liked, I was studying folks how to write scripts and movies and all that, because I want to not just do my books. I want to do the next level and produce them ourselves, like so many are doing on all the channels now. And we have a lot of channels. I have a lot of them on YouTube. So I guess that's where we broadcast from. But anyway, for right now, Richard has a good way. He says it's a gift of gab, as is born with, as his bringing up, which may or may not be true, because he has a lot of Scottish in him. And I have Irish in me, and I know I have the gift of gab because people tell me all my life, and my children, at least one of them, Angela, says that people will tell her Now, it was harder to go through menopause, and my children are going through it, the 3 that are still alive anyway, because they've reached that age. So they were born in 68, 70, 72, and 74. So that's the years they were born. And so now in 2021, well, let's say roughly within 2 years apart, every 2 years I had a daughter. So it was August 13th that Steffi just showed up. So 3 out of 4 still alive. And then really the kind of love we have is not made for a parent to bury their children. So all of you out there on this day that have buried a child, God bless you, because without our faith to have within a higher power, I don't know how anyone could do it and live through it. Now, she died on the 19th, and I don't remember hardly anything in 19 and 2020. And then COVID-19 was in 2020, and so 2 years, roughly, yeah, because I didn't come back out. Richard came into my life like the end and sort of brought me out of my bubble with just 2 people, Janet Lesson and Tommy Hawksblood, which most of you know, for 9 years, and they have their own channels now. So Richard honored me by having, I guess, taken mercy on my soul and helping me get my church started. That I wanted to do that because my daughter died of cancer, and the type was not out there for her to share or find anything about it on the internet, not the way that she did it. So she left behind her story in various phone to internet videos on YouTube. So thank God for YouTube. And I'm going to do my best to get those where we can all see it, because her legacy was for our church, Ascension Church Ohana. And she knows I had Theresa J Morris Ministries in my name, but we always had Ascension Center Organization in Hawaii when she lived there with me. And we had the ACE Metaphysical Institute and the Ascension Center Psychic Network. And I taught all this stuff. But she gathered a little bit from hanging out because she was too young, and I had her in private school for movie stars over there, very wealthy, because she had come to me from her dad during that divorce as Skinhead and Doc something, Book Hook or something, Boots, and we had to deal with that culture crisis in my life. So we had her going to 150 hours psychologist and 500 a month or so, or every 3 months or something. Anyway, it was expensive school. But she learned to love differently once she went through that. And I got her in the Hawaii paper as a model, and for my clothes, for my corporation, and Jungle Beach, and wearing the court clothes. And my husband was in there. I was on the back page with my partner. But that kind of love is hard to express, that we were together and went and sealed in the Latter-day Saint Church, so church and love and family, hugging and kissing. We did all that stuff that my mother didn't do with me or my father. The closest thing my father I can ever did was picking me up to his waist. And then remember when he'd say, "You're too big," and Mother would say, "She's too big." But I guess that's, I don't know how old you are, but it seemed like 6 to 8 because he'd pick the other children up. And I always remember, that big pull from the floor, and sometimes I'd push and he'd pull. So that was a big deal when you're too big for love to be handled or hugged. So, Richard, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I've been hearing you all along.
Oh, it showed that you dropped off.
Yeah, I did temporarily. I hit the wrong button, but I dialed right back in. So I didn't miss a word or two.
Oh, okay. Well, that there's different kinds of the way we think of love, and I hear different people that have been on the show for 8 years talk about love, or family love, and student love. Your buddies are the ones you get a crush on at school, and family love. And then we may have dysfunctional families when we get together after we've grown up, And I know when my brothers and sisters, because Mother would always insist all of us getting together because she had 6 children, then another with Charlie, my stepfather. So we had a half-sister, Letitia Thomas, and she married Sendejas. So in Houston, we brought in the Catholic Mexican family. We still wound up being a mixed family with Catholics. And I love them. And, we learned to love people of color because half of the family was now having children. And my niece, Marissa Sendejas, is half Spanish, Mexican, and she looks at real dark skin, dark eyebrows, and, black eyebrows and black hair, And here, I am olive skin with a white face and white hair now. But it's not about the colors. It's about the love and the endearing sentiment, although I don't see family. So now, Richard, let's get into this logistics, especially when people go home for Thanksgiving. We honor, love one another with our culture. And what we see that basically came through the churches, even the hallowed evening, are those that we praise the dead, walk the earth, and Christmas for when we put out the trees, which probably have nothing to do. And I've studied it during that time and found it usually has something to do with the old world and how things were done. But you'll have to look that up and then compare the different stories as to how that got to be. But since Mother's grandfather, which I was telling you was from Poland, I may not have finished that conversation, but they were Jewish. So apparently, I remember when my mother's mother finally said they were going to have a tree because they were Jewish and they never did. And my great-grandmother honored that Jewish tradition. But when my mother's mother married a Bolton, and she was Esther Bolton, she said, she broke tradition with my great-grandmother and had a tree. I remember because she taught, my great-grandmother was one of those, her sisters were Mennonites and wore the petticoats, and they would bring that part of our family. I'm going back to when I was a child in the 50s, late 50s, early 60s. We mixed with my cousins that I loved, even though they were Mennonites. They weren't allowed to play with us at the family reunions. They had on the long dresses, button-up shoes, petticoats, and a bonnet on their head. But they weren't. And I was trying to figure out, what do you mean? Because, and it was a different time for children in the same family coming from the old school of Mennonites, couldn't be Catholics, and they were like Anabaptist, I think, what's the other one that drive the horse and buggies, Richard?
I had it in my mind, and then the Amish. And basically both of these cultures more or less say it's one leads a life closer to God if they more or less divorce the way of the outward world. So they're very close kin culture, and they're religious in the fact being that they have very strict rules and regulations over what they can and cannot do, and they're not outward in regards to wanting to intermix in general society and that kind of thing. They try very much to keep to themselves and provide society of themselves for themselves. And so there's a specific way of dress and a specific way of a custom of relating to each other and rights and wrongs that are according to their culture. And it's, it's like living in a different or a separate world, you could say, because naturally our culture and the way that we cultivate our ideas and expressions and sentiment are expressed towards us emotionally and otherwise leads us to our beliefs, which in turn becomes our faith. And so therefore, people of different faith that come to us through different cultures, oftentimes there's like a separateness at first because there's no melding of the ways. So then, of course, to break with tradition and do something that was counter another one's tradition or whatever, kind of sets a new pace or opens a new doorway, you could say, through which all those